Saving America one entrepreneur at a time, it's the Biz Wrap Podcast with your host, Michael Manahan. The show that celebrates small business and entrepreneurs, it's Biz Wrap Radio with your host, small businessman, educator, and author, Michael Manahan. And welcome to another edition of Biz Wrap Radio. It's your host, Michael Manahan, and thank you so much for joining me today. Biz Wrap Radio is the show all about entrepreneurs and small business. We're here to help you if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a small business operator in America. We're here to help you run your business more effectively, more efficiently, perhaps figure out some new strategies you can use to make money, to improve sales, to reduce costs. Perhaps you're trying to raise some capital for your business. You've got expansion on the forefront and you're struggling with capital raising issues. Maybe we can assist you there. Each week we feature guests on the show who have expertise that can help and assist small businesses. And the great thing about our guests is, yes, even though most of them are consultants or advisors of one sort or another, they all seem to have a lot of information that they're willing to give for free. A lot of them have websites where you can download white papers, you can download articles, you can get a lot of information that doesn't cost you a lot of money if you're, for instance, capital constrained, or if you really want to check out and get some ideas and thoughts before you actually engage anybody. And our guests are absolutely fabulous. Their expertise runs from everything to marketing, to sales, to customer service, financing your business, patents, trademarks, lawsuits, social media, and the list goes on and on. Today, we are really, really lucky to have on the phone with us a gentleman that we think will be able to really help you if you are planning on launching a new product. I've got Jim Wilkinson from Veritech on the line. Jim, how are you this morning?
I'm doing superb, Mike. How about you?
I'm just doing great. It's a fabulous day here in sunny downtown Long Beach, California. But to Jim, I understand that you can help people who are trying to launch new products. And, of course, I'm a big believer in people who develop and invent and create new products. I mean, that's kind of how we keep the economy going. We've seen a lot of that over the many years. But there's a lot of mishaps and a lot of mistakes that you can make. So maybe you can just give the listeners just an idea of what Veritech and what you can do for somebody who's perhaps interested in developing or launching a new product.
You bet. Thanks for asking. Well, first off, Veritech has been in business since 1987. We're not necessarily new kids on the block. I've been doing this type of business for over 30 years, and about 9 years ago, I moved away from working primarily with fortune companies such as largest Tier 1 auto supplier in the country to focusing more on the up-and-coming entrepreneur, guys like me who are just full of inventions and ideas. And the problem you run into is there is no real good resource out there when somebody has an idea how to get started. And I've just seen over and over and over again ad nauseum people have gone the wrong direction and spent what little they had doing the right thing at the wrong time primarily. And so my company, my business is focused around first and foremost helping them to avoid those pitfalls, and second of all, to move their product forward in an expedient fashion. And that said, my real focus is in manufacturing these days. So we develop the product. We've got 3D printers and engineering and everything you need. But we develop the product so that we can manufacture it. And working with local suppliers, we found that we can actually compete dollar for dollar with the landed costs of Chinese goods, Chinese products, in many, many cases.
Well, that's incredible. I mean, that's really what we need. We need to get our manufacturing base back here in the United States. And it seems there's more and more companies manufacturing here in the U.S., particularly small enterprises, maybe not the companies that are manufacturing hundreds of thousands or millions of products, but smaller manufacturing seems to be coming back. But Jim, you mentioned pitfalls or mistakes that people who are trying to launch new products make. Can you give us an idea of maybe one or two of the mistakes you typically see that entrepreneurs fall into?
Sure. I think the most common mistake that someone falls into, in terms of entrepreneurs, the most common mistake is failure to do adequate planning. The school of business planning, if you will, for the most part, my opinion, is backwards. And a lot of people, they have an idea, they want to start a business. The first thing they have to do is write a business plan. And they write that business plan because the bank needs it for them to borrow money to open their business. So what I've just said there is about 45,000 things that are wrong. First off, you don't borrow money until you have the cash flow to service the debt. And so when you go to the SBA to open your business, you obviously do not have that cash flow yet. So that's the first problem. The second problem there is you don't write a business plan to raise capital or to get a loan. You write a business plan to operate your company. And so you start out with core values, and then you move into your vision and your steps of how you're going to achieve your vision, and then your business plan is your operational plan of how you're going to implement. And I just see so many people write business plans that have no relevance of where they're going. It's just a document they wrote to get funding of one kind or another, and it's of no value, and it's a lot of money that they spend and a lot of time that they spend with no real gain at all. And it really sidetracks them, and I think it causes a lot of failures. The other issue you run into is you go and see a patent attorney, and of course the first thing you want to do is file your patent, get your patent going. Well, not really. There's if you have a product, you may or may not want to ever file a patent, and there's strategic reasons both ways. And so going into that intelligently with a plan of attack and a strategy is probably what you want to think about doing. And so I talk with my clients, and people come to me about that, and we've created some resources to help people with that. And knowing that most entrepreneurs, most inventors are resource constrained, we've developed things to help them along that line as well. So.
Well, that's excellent advice, and I so much agree with you on the business plans. I, of course, have written many business plans, and people occasionally hire me to write their business plan, and it's often amazing how I'll be dealing with an entrepreneur. He's planning on starting a new business, and I'll say, okay, I can put it in writing, but you got to tell me actually what you're planning, and they haven't planned very much. I mean, really, they really have not thought out, even conceptually in many cases, where their business is going to go and how they're going to get where they want to go with their business. And very often they'll just say, well, Mike, you know how to, you've written many business plans, you've read a lot of business plans, just put in what they normally put in there in a business plan. But, well, if you pay me to do it, I'll do it. But my advice to you is, your advice is that business plan really should be a roadmap. and better off to write it, even if you're not a good writer, to at least get down your own concepts on paper and have a clue where you want to go with the business and start answering the key questions. And then if you want somebody to help you polish it because your English is not that good, or you want to put in illustrations or tables or do a little more market research, then you can do that. But Jim, we're getting close to the end of our first segment here. So we're going to have to break for commercial break. I've got Jim Wilkinson. Jim is with Veritech on the line. We're going to give you his contact information in the next segment, so stick over for that. He's talking about how you launch your new products and what to do and what not to do. And we will be back right after these messages with more from Biz Rap Radio. And welcome back to Biz Rap Radio. It's your host, Michael Manahan, and I am on the line today with Jim Wilkinson. Jim is the CEO of Veritech, his company, and he help entrepreneurs who are trying to launch new products. We've just been talking about how important a business plan is in terms of success and in terms of planning where your business is going to go. But, Jim, you mentioned something else. And I don't want to say anything derogatory about attorneys, but you're right. Often somebody will go with an idea, they'll go to an attorney, and they say, and the first thing the attorney says, well, you need to file patents on these, and oh, by the way, that's going to cost $15,000 or $20,000. And it isn't always necessary to do that, to file the patent in the first place. There are other strategies. And secondly, I hesitate to say this, but I think a lot of attorneys automatically try to get you to do that just so they can put the $15,000 or $20,000 in their pocket, rather than give you some really good advice. And in my experience, having dealt with literally hundreds and hundreds of attorneys in my career, just because you have that law degree does not make you an expert in business. You may be an expert in law, but there's a significant difference between being an expert in law and being an expert in business. So how should one really address that patent issue when it comes up with the attorney and he's pressing you to mortgage your house to give him $20,000 so he can file the patent on your behalf?
Well, see, yeah, you're right, spot on the money, Mike. Okay, but in reality, the patent attorney goes that route, or the attorney goes that route, because they don't know any better. Because they, like just what you said, most of them have no concept of business, and so it all starts with a product with proper documentation. Even with the new patent laws, proper documentation is so critical. And rather than try to teach it in the few minutes we have here, I actually have on my website a free, it's called the Practical Inventor Starters Kit, and we can give them the URL for that. But it's free, and it goes through the process of proper documentation and all that. Let's just say, I'll give you an example. I just got my core technology patent issued for my nanotechnology process that we're working on launching right now. I've been working on that project for 27 years. And had I gone out and patented it, this process, the initial part of it 27 years ago, obviously the patent would have run out by now, and I haven't even launched it yet. Herein lies a problem. Well, proper documentation and being discreet about, not paranoid, discreet about how you disclose it, and documentation of how and who it's disclosed to, which is all covered in this starter kit, can protect your idea better than running out and getting that patent. Save your money. You may not even know if your idea is patentable or if it's got any kind of commercial value yet. Because quite frankly, your billion-dollar idea has zero value until somebody sees the product sitting on the store shelf, so to speak, and puts it in their shopping cart and goes to the checkout and pays for it and takes it home and comes back and buys it again. And that repeat purchase is really critical. The first-time purchase is nice, but if they like it enough to come back and buy it again, now you got a product, now you've got something you can assign a value to it, and the value is your sales. And a lot of people trying to get somebody who's married to their idea, like I never get married to my ideas, but
it's hard not to, I'll tell you.
ever do I get married to my ideas, and I don't lie much either. Anyway, so but it's really hard to get people to understand that. And
so Jim, give us the website where they can go. It's this the Practical Inventor's Guidebook. It's free. You don't charge for this?
Correct. It's first off, the website is www.veritech.com, and Veritech is spelled V as in Victor or victory. So VERITEK, Veritech.
So if I've come up with some kind of an invention, I've developed something in my garage that I think has some practicality to it, and I'm now next steps. What do I do? This would be kind of the guidebook that I should go to. That'll kind of tell me how I should approach moving forward with my invention.
Absolutely correct. It's going to teach you about proper documentation. It's going to talk about strategy. Developing a strategy around your product development, around your patenting, around your prototypes. Prototype is in a lot of ways like a boat, only it's not in the water, but it's a hole in the ground that people pour money into, to build a prototype. So unless you do it in an organized and planned, shall I say again, planned manner, okay, really understanding different types of prototypes and their uses. So the Practical Inventor Starter Kit is free. It's basically an abridged ebook version of my book, The Practical Inventor, that you'll also see on the website as well. And
that sounds just like a tremendous resource for somebody who's got a product, they want to launch it. And then what happens if somebody gets your guidebook, they go through it, and they kind of follow what's in the guidebook, but now they're at the stage where they've done what they need to do. They really think that, hey, I need to get a prototype made of this. I need to try and do some marketing. Can you help an individual who is trying to develop a prototype?
You bet. Yeah. Well, that's our core business. And to get started on that, you go back to my website, and there's a tab for inventors, and you click on that tab, and there's some white papers and some more free resources there. And in there is a non-disclosure agreement that, first off, you want to download that. It's in the Word format, and fill it out and send it in, and then we'll schedule a 30-minute appointment. Second off, it's in Word format so that you can download it and change the contact information and use it for your own non-disclosure agreement. I would suggest that you take that to your attorney and say, here's my non-disclosure agreement. Would you just go through this and put your stamp of approval or tweak it? Don't just take because I'm not an attorney and I don't provide legal advice, but I'll let you steal my stuff shamelessly, and I encourage you to steal my stuff shamelessly and use it because it works. I've used it, and I'm glad to share that if it'll help you move forward.
Yeah, and that's great advice. Over the years, I know historically what people have done with attorneys is you tend to go to the attorney and you say, I need a non-disclosure document. And then what the attorney does is the attorney basically pulls one out of his database of legal documents. He makes 3 changes to it, and then he says, there's a bill for $1,500. But
right.
Many legal documents today are readily available. They're often available on the internet, though you have to be very careful if you go to the internet and do searches for any kind of document, whether it's a legal document or otherwise, because a lot of websites use those as basically a trap to get your email address, and you give your email address, you're able to download maybe a PDF format that you can't change, unlike Jim's document that's in Word format, and you can change it. But you have to give your email address, and the next thing you know, your inbox is just being inundated with all sorts of spam email, because in the fine print, when you provide them with your email address to get that document that you think you need, there's in the fine print it says, well, you're agreeing to us soliciting you with offers of various sorts and various nature. And then when you try and get off of those email lists, it's almost impossible. I mean, they want you to actually write a letter and send it to some P.O. box down in, Tampa, Florida or something, and you never seem to be able to get off of those lists. So, look, Jim, we are now coming up on the end of our second segment. I'm really enjoying this conversation. Can you stay over for maybe another 5 or 6 minutes into the next segment and give some more ideas and thoughts to our listeners?
I would be delighted.
Okay, fantastic. It's BizRap Radio. Your host, Michael Manahan. We're on with Jim Wilkinson of Veritech, talking about how you can launch your new product and the free resources that Jim has available for you if you're an inventor. We'll be back right after these messages. We've got on the line today with us Jim Wilkinson. He's the CEO of Veritech. You can check out Veritech at www.veritech.com. You can go to veritech.com, and you can download the Practical Inventor Starter Kit, and it's free of charge. Doesn't cost you a thing. Full of great ideas of how to get your product started and how to begin the process of taking your product from concept to market. Jim, again, thanks very much for being on the show with us today.
You're welcome. And by the way, if you missed the last segment, listen to it. What we were talking about was people when they offer things like this that you get on the spam list forever. I, however, do not spam people, so you're safe with that. So.
Yeah, that's the other nice thing. The people we have on the BizRap Radio show, if you get on their email list, they're going to send you maybe some specific emails about their products and services. It'll be easy to get off of their lists if you don't want to be on their lists, and they will never put you on any of these big spam lists. And plus, if you're looking for resources, again, everybody who's on BizRap Radio not only has typically a huge amount of free resources on their website, most of them will engage you in a 15, 20-minute, half-hour, maybe even an hour conversation absolutely free of charge about what you're trying to do and give you some free advice. And then you can really determine if you want to take the next step and actually start spending some money. And Jim, if somebody wants to talk to you about their particular product that they're trying to launch, will you talk to them about it?
Absolutely. What I do require is executed non-disclosure agreement before I'll talk to them, and the primary purpose for that is it documents, back to the documentation thing, that the discussion is in the private venue, which it provides real no protection other than it ensures patentability, because any disclosure you may make is maintained in the private venue.
Gotcha. Well, the one thing about dealing with you, you know how this is done. You know how the process should be done properly, and so whatever you're going to do is going to be the way the individual should be approaching business anyways. And then we talked about you helping with the prototype. And by the way, I know prototypes. Of course, I live here in Long Beach, California, which is close to Hollywood. And at one point in time, I was chief financial officer for a consumer products company. And I recall that we would have prototypes made by some company up in the San Fernando Valley that I think did a lot of stuff for the movie theaters. And the prototypes cost a fortune. I mean, they were like literally $200,000-$300,000 we'd pay for a prototype of something that looked like I could have built it in my garage in about 15 minutes.
Yeah, that's not a very good value. So there's much better ways to do those prototypes these days.
So you can give people guidance on prototypes. Okay, now let's say they do a prototype, and I don't know, they get lucky, they go show it to a marketing company, perhaps a company that's got connections with a major retailer, I don't know, maybe Costco or Walmart, or maybe it's an automotive product with Pep Boys or something like that. And they get a really good indication, and people say, hey, look, if you can manufacture this, we'll buy it from you. Now, can you help with the manufacturing side? Because that's always a big challenge. Who do you go to? Do you go manufacture it in China and India, or do you try and use somebody local? And how do you maneuver through that difficult process?
Well, I guide people along the way that I do business myself. Okay, and I've seen companies try to launch offshore, and unless you have presence offshore, don't do it. In other words, for us small people, going to China, India for your product development or for your manufacturing launch is almost guaranteed to fail. Almost guaranteed to fail. I mean, there are exceptions, but they're the exception, not the norm. Staying local, you may pay more for it, but there's a huge value in being able to pick up the phone and being able to talk to someone in your native language and understands the culture that you live in and understands things like deadlines. We actually manufacture a product, and our focus is on manufacturing product locally using local suppliers. We do the product development. In fact, I won't manufacture a product that we haven't developed. I'll just say that right out, because we end up redesigning it so that we can manufacture it cost effectively. So we want to develop your product and manufacture it. And what I've found is when we do that, we can compete dollar for dollar with the landed cost of Chinese or offshore built products. And careful to say landed cost, because what people don't understand about manufacturing overseas is time changes, minimum order quantities, import duties, taxes, freight charges. It all adds up, and it also adds up in terms of time delays. And what's your opportunity cost, which is you could have sold your product to somebody, but you didn't have it available, so you couldn't sell it. It's called opportunity cost. So,
well, I understand completely what you're saying, because, again, I was chief financial officer of a consumer products company. We did all of our manufacturing over in Asia, and we sold primarily to major retailers, Walmart, Target, Toys R Us. But it's challenging because the turnaround time, I mean, fortunately, Walmart, will order 6 months in advance. But we would often get a smaller order, 3,000 units, 5,000 units, but they needed the product quickly, 10 days or 15 days or even a month. We couldn't turn the product around that fast. We'd have to turn the orders down, because to get the product manufactured, in a factory somewhere in the hinterlands of China, get it shipped to the coast, get it loaded onto a freighter. That freighter takes, however many weeks to cross the Pacific Ocean. Then it's got to go through the port of Long Beach or the port of Los Angeles. It's got to go into a custom storage. You got to clear the thing. It's a lot of issues and problems. And particularly when you're starting out, it's great to be able to pick up somebody who's actually making the product and, hey, look, we got a real opportunity here, but we have to move quickly. And if you've got a manufacturer here in the U.S., you're going to be able to do that. You're going to be able to be more responsive to the market shifts and demands than if you're trying to manufacture somewhere offshore. Not to mention the fact that there are significant, as you mentioned, Jim, cultural challenges in manufacturing in Asia. One of the biggest being, deadlines don't mean exactly the same thing in China as they do in the United States of America. And I'm not going to say any more on that issue.
Not even close. Well, and the other thing to remember is, when that product arrives and that product is not what you thought it would be, because, maybe you didn't do drawings with specifications and tolerances. Maybe you did, but they don't really read them anyway. So the product is not usable for your purpose. Try returning it. It's not likely to happen because, quite frankly, you're a small fish, and they just don't respond very well. And so I do know people with garage fulls of product that they just really can't use anywhere. And about the big box stores too, what people don't understand, and not to discourage people, because certainly you want to move forward, but the big box stores don't buy the product. You buy the product, you put it on their shelf, and they pay you 60 to 90 days after they sell it. That means that if you're selling $4 million worth of product through Walmart, you've got the product on the shelves, the product in the warehouse ready to go, the product in transit, and the product in the queue. You got 4 to 5 times. So if you're selling $4 million a year, you probably have $20 million wrapped up in inventory and work in process. So,
and of course, what you're really saying, Jim, is that most small businesses just don't have that capital. Look, we're coming up to the end of this segment. We've got to go. We've really enjoyed this, Jim, today being with you. It's Jim Wilkinson. You can go to www.veritech.com, download their free practical inventor guide. If you're an inventor out there, go for it. Make your dream a reality. Jim, thanks for joining us today. And with that, we'll have to wrap it up for this segment of BizRap Radio. And welcome back to BizRap Radio. It's your host, Michael Manahan, and thank you so much for joining us today. If you missed the last few segments of the show, we had a very interesting guest on. It was Jim Wilkinson of Veritech, and if you're launching a new product, Jim is really somebody you want to talk to. His website is a place that you want to go. You can go to veritech.com. For the last part of the show, I want to talk a little bit about credit cards. Many small business people out there, myself included, we use our credit cards for business, and many of us use it almost as a replacement for what we used to get from the banks. You know, the old days, you used to get a bank loan. You'd go to the local banker for your business, and you get a bank loan, $50,000, $75,000, $100,000, whatever it was needed. And that was the money that you used for working capital purposes. That was the money you used to fund your business and to even out the cash flows so you didn't run out of money if you had a bad month or if you had a seasonal business. And, of course, our friends at the banks aren't really lending much money to small businesses these days. You can always go through the SBA and have a loan that's guaranteed by the Small Business Administration, but that's a lot of hassle and red tape, and it's not all that easy to get. So what's happened is people have looked to alternative sources of financing to fund their business, and one of the ones that many entrepreneurs use today is the credit card. We have a credit card. It has a $20,000, $30,000, $40,000. I've heard people with credit cards that have $100,000 balance or limits on them, and you use the credit card, and when the money is good, you pay the credit card down. When you need the cash flow, then you run the amount of the credit card up. So it makes sense. We're probably paying more of an interest rate than we traditionally paid when we borrowed money directly from the bank, but, if the business is profitable, interest is a cost of doing business, it's tax deductible, and it's a legitimate business expense. So there's not a problem with that. And actually, some credit cards do offer fairly reasonable rates. I've heard people paying in 8%, 10%, 12% on their credit cards, which would all be considered reasonable from a business expense perspective. But be careful of credit cards. There are some unscrupulous credit card companies out there, and one I've just come across in two different areas is Capital One. They are marketing what they call their Spark business card, and I got a bunch of advertisements in the mail from them, and I also saw them at a show. Went to a business show here just recently, and they had a booth, and they're actually getting people to sign up. And all of the information you would get from them would lead you to believe you are getting a business card. It says Spark Business right on the sample card. It's addressed to the business, the literature that I received. And it just makes it look, it talks about you can actually issue additional cards to your employees. The whole thing looks like it is a complete business card, and they even list on here APR rates of as low as 13.9%, which doesn't sound too bad at all. And so, hey, this is something that maybe as a small business person you could use. And the credit application here talks about, tell us about your business, and asks other things about your business. Are you a corporation? Are you a sole proprietorship? What type of business are you in? And so it really does look like you are completing a business application. But then I went over and I talked to the individual who was in the booth at the Sparks Capital One business card, who was trying to get people to sign up for their credit card. I talked to the gentleman and I said, is this a business card? He said, yes, this is a business card. It's tied to your business. And I said, well, this is great because, a lot of small business people are using personal credit cards. So I said, I'll tell you what, let me apply for one of these cards. And so we go through the application. He asks for, business address. He wants the business employer identification number from the federal government, wants the name of the business, who's the president, what form of business it is, and some additional information, how much annual income. And then he starts to ask me some additional questions. He wants to know, what's my Social Security number? And then he wants to know, do I own my own home? And then he wants to know how much my mortgage is. And then he wants to know how much my personal income is. And all of a sudden I realized this is not a business card. This is just a credit card that says business on it. This is really a personal credit card. And then I asked the gentleman, I said, well, I thought this was a business card. Why do you need all that personal information on me? And he starts to hum and haw and stutter. And then I said, now, let me ask you another question. Are you going to run a personal credit check on me? Or is this card strictly tied into my business? Oh, yes. He says, we'll run a personal credit check on you. Well, I says, hang on here. You're running a personal credit check on me. You want all of my personal information. You want my mortgage. You want my how much income I personally make, all sorts of stuff that has nothing to do with my business. This really isn't a business card, is it? This is really a personal card that you just have put the name business on it. Oh, no. He says, no, this is definitely a business card. I said, look, if you're running credit checks on me personally, I said to him, okay, so let me ask you a question. If General Motors needs a credit card, does the president of General Motors to provide his personal Social Security number, his personal amount of the mortgage on his house, and his personal income? I don't think so. Okay, what about what about any big corporation? Do you think if Microsoft needs a credit card that Bill Gates has to go in there and provide all of his personal information for Microsoft to get a credit card? No, this is a scam. It's not a business card. It's a personal card. It's tied to you personally. And the very idea that they say it's a business card is incorrect. So watch out for these kind of scams. There's lots of them around. This is Sparks Business from Capital One trying to convince you you're issuing you a credit card for your business when really what they're doing is they're issuing you a personal credit card that just happens to say the name of your business on it. But at the end of the day, they're going to do a credit check on you, and they want all manner of personal financial information on you, which is something that they would never ask for a major corporation like AT&T or Verizon or Comcast or Universal or Disney. I can guarantee you those companies are getting a true business card that is not tied to any one single individual within the corporation. So don't be fooled by that stuff. It's It's terrible how they're making take advantage of small business people. And be careful of those credit cards in general. Remember that if you if you get behind in your payments, if you can't pay your payments, the credit card company is going to cut them off. And then if that's how you're financing your business, you may not be able to finance your business any longer. There is a risk in that. But definitely watch out for that Sparks business from Capital One. Well, we're coming towards the end of the show. I want to thank you very much for listening to us today. Here at BizRap Radio, we believe we can fix the United States of America through a fundamental concept that individuals pursuing their own economic interests in free markets will create more prosperity for more people than can ever be achieved through government regulations and a planned economy. It's BizRap Radio, fixing America through individual economic freedom. I really appreciate you joining me this week. I had so much fun doing the show and talking to our guests. So again, thanks so much for joining us. It's your host, Michael Manahan, at BizRap Radio, and we'll be back with another edition next week.